Richard Speck, Part 4, Finale.
So here's the thing. I just spent over a month of my life learning basically everything known about Richard Speck. I worked hard to ensure that details were correct. That part was and is very important to me. Like many subjects, especially lately, the same information gets repeated without going back to figure out if the source was reputable. It reminds me of those clips of news stations where they're all reading the exact script as all the others. My point is that I stuck my brain into everything I could to weed out all the fiction. If I got something wrong, it was not intentional, and nothing was added for shock value. Truth is far more interesting. It doesn't need stage makeup. Recreations in media are a bit of a mess, and I don't recommend them if you're interested in what really happened. It's like when you want to drink some orange juice, but the back of the bottle says contains no fruit juice. If you're looking for corn syrup, drink up. Just know that it's not orange juice. Often Richard is seen as some raving lunatic, but he just wasn't. He was far more blah. And the women are depicted wearing nurses' uniforms with knee-high tights and the little white hat, as if nurses wear that at all times. No other wardrobe. No need to buy other clothes, just the uniform. I mean, my mother-in-law's a flight attendant, and she only wears her uniform. Going shopping, out to parties, family pictures, Christmas. Even when she got married, airline uniform down the aisle. She even said the safety script for her vows. Guess if you wear a uniform for work, it's very convenient for movies if something goes wrong in your life. Anyway, I went down 1,000 rabbit holes while researching this case. So this will be a compilation of some things I found that didn't really fit into the storytelling in parts 1, 2, and 3. The things on the periphery that I found interesting. You get it. The book. In one of the pictures taken of the nurse's townhouse, there was a book. All I could make out was the night of the... I stared, I Googled, but all I could see was Vimter or Nemior or some other words that don't exist. So one of my offspring walked over and said, "Oh, the night of the visitor. A show-off." But there was something about finding that same book for sale on Amazon today that had me stuck looking at that original picture. Who was reading that book? Did they read it that very day? Were they reading it before bed that night? There's not enough context in the picture to figure out which room it was in, and trust me, I spent a long time trying. But reading that title, The Night of the Visitor, with the illustrated young woman wearing white, eyes closed, I love a good coincidence. But this one,
The last song.
Before Gloria went back to the townhouse that night, she'd been out with her fiancé. They were singing along with what I read was her favorite song, You'll Never Walk Alone. It was a Rodgers and Hammerstein song made for the musical Carousel. In 1966, I assume the version they were listening to was Jerry and the Pacemakers on the radio. The lyrics to that song include, "When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone." So the last song Gloria heard, and the last song her fiancé heard while with Gloria, was You'll Never Walk Alone. My theory. Okay, so look at this picture of Richard. While researching, I kept having a thought occur to me. Richard seemed like a less attractive James Dean. So I went with it. James Dean lost his mom when he was 9. Richard Speck lost his dad when he was 6. I mean, okay, interesting coincidence that they both lost a parent as a child. But stay with me. James Dean's tragic car accident happened in 1955, when Richard Speck was 13. If you remember from part 1, Richard was 13 when he was first arrested for setting fires in a car lot. A car lot. When James Dean died, he was 24 years and 7 months old. When Richard Speck broke into the nurse's townhouse, he was 24 years and 7 months old. When you think about James Dean, what comes to mind? For me, it's Rebel Without a Cause. Richard got a tattoo that said, Born to Raise Hell. Rebel Without a Cause, Born to Raise Hell. As I said in part 2, I strongly believe that Richard thought he'd be caught that night. His behavior was pretty brazen. He got there before their curfew, so people would be trickling in either to their house or to the others that were right there in the same complex. He likely knew when they'd be in, as he'd spent literally time in front of or behind their house. He went to answer the door when the doorbell rang. I mean, what is that? Why? He knew that the young nurses had dates or were in relationships. He saw them, so some guy could have shown up too. I also read that Richard looked out the back window of that bedroom toward Luella Park many times, and I have a feeling that he was looking for someone, or for the police, but not in an I want to make sure no one saw me kind of way. I think he was actually waiting to be caught. He had no friends, but he did talk a lot to random people, and he drank a lot. People thought he was weird. He bragged about a fake life, and I'm sure people knew that. So what if he told someone he was drinking with that he was going over there to the nurse's townhouse to rob them or something, but that maybe he wasn't taken seriously? Like, sure, man, yeah, we're all very impressed. It just doesn't make sense to me that he was in no hurry whatsoever. He was there for 4 hours or so. Maybe he told someone to come join him? I don't know, obviously. But I do think he wanted to go down in a blaze of glory, surrounded by cops or something big and flashy like that. I do believe that his original plan failed, and that it was frustration that caused the extent of what happened that night. I think he thought of himself as a James Dean character, kind of the cool white t-shirt wearing, chain-smoking bad guy that secretly the ladies all wanted. But no one saw him that way. He was just the less attractive, poorly executed version. Like when you need to make a copy of something, but the printer's almost out of ink, so it makes a really sketchy, shady copy. And then you find out the last person to use the printer left in a dark piece of paper from their project, so that sketchy print can barely even be seen at all. Then you're just annoyed and you end up throwing that stupid thing away. That's Richard Speck. Vocabulary time. I learned a new word, so I'm passing it on. I read that Richard Speck's mom was a teetotaler. A teetotaler is someone who drinks no alcohol. The T, T-E-E, was originally just the letter T, and was used in the same way you could say, that guy is a loser with a capital L. It was just an emphasis on the word total. Teetotal, meaning totally abstaining from all alcohol. It was first used in the early 1800s. If you didn't know that word before, there you go. And the more you know, the less you don't know. The townhouse. I must say that I was surprised to see that the townhouse is still there, and it still looks just like it did in July 1966. Google Maps helped me to visualize where the women lived with respect to the National Maritime Union, and to see that there definitely was a clear view from Luella Park to the townhouse, especially if they ever opened their windows. But seeing pictures of that same townhouse today, with those same rooms, and frankly what looks like the same flooring. Honestly though, look at the wood floor in what was Cora and Merlita's room. I really, really hope it's not the same. In the kitchen, some things have changed, but it looks like the cupboards are the same, just painted black. Realtor sites show that 2319 East 100th Street last sold in 2015 for $31,000. Am I the only one who finds it kind of gross to keep it like a mirror to the past? I don't see it in a haunted sort of way, but doesn't it seem a bit disrespectful? The Wallendas. Carl formed what would be called the Flying Wallendas in 1922. Born in Germany, he'd come from a long line of circus workers. His act became attractive for balancing on high wire without a safety net. It was a family affair, forming pyramids on high wire, and the extended family of performers still exists today. Carl was famous for distance high wire walking until he fell to his death while skywalking between two hotels in Puerto Rico in 1978. Carl Wallenda was the uncle of Jack Wallenda, the lead detective in the Richard Speck case. Before entering his lifetime career in law enforcement, Jack served in the Army. What I found interesting is that he served in the Philippines in 1945 and 1946 and received the Philippine Liberation Ribbon and the Asiatic Pacific Theater Ribbon. So remember that Cora, the nurse who he protected for months until she testified, was from the Philippines. So were Merlita and Valentina. He was in the Army during the liberation of the Philippine Islands from when the Japanese attacked and invaded. Cora would have been 2 or 3 years old while Jack was there. What if he interacted with her as a child? I know it's unlikely, but the fact that he could have, that's crazy to me. Detective Wallenda acted as a rescuer for Cora 2 times in 2 different countries. That's just fascinating.